We don't often want to admit that we have deep problems with a lot of these issues, and I'm sure we all know, particularly within the mainstream media, that a lot of these very difficult issues that the Indigenous community are faced with, there's a lot of denial and there's a lot of blame placed elsewhere for the issues that we're faced with. So pornography is one of those issues, certainly. It was highlighted during the intervention into the Northern Territory as being a problem. And there are those that I hear from within the Indigenous community who continue to deny that, they feel a sense of shame that it was brought up as an issue that affects our communities. Instead of seeing this issue as an issue of shame, acknowledging that it exists as a problem is the first step toward trying to solve it as a problem. And that, of course, takes place for a lot of the issues we face, like domestic violence, child sexual abuse, and all those sorts of things. So the more we can discuss it, the easier it becomes to discuss, if you like, and then to be able to try to solve. Having grown up around remote communities, that pornography has been an issue from when I was growing up, certainly, but even more so now, of course, because of the access, the very easy access there is to pornography. If anyone who's got a mobile phone, a device, anything like that has access to it. Children are confronted with things like online games, Minecraft, Roblox, things like that. An innocent child is simply playing a game which is found online, and within those games now, especially games like Roblox, where the users become the developers of games, they are sexualising some of these games, and children are unfortunately coming across these sorts of things by accident. So you've got that, but then of course you've got very easy access regardless. And once a child knows about these sorts of things, they then, it may intrigue them to want to go back and look at those things again. We've got a situation where also young people are viewing pornography and thinking this is normalised behaviour and acting out this behaviour. There's a problem with young people interacting sexually and doing things like the violence, like the choking, acting out those sorts of things. We are dealing with the situations where there are men in communities whose wives will not submit to the sorts of violent behaviours that they view in pornography. So they are then instead forcing young girls, the age of 12 and 13, to submit to this sort of behaviour. And this, of course, is, again, child sexual abuse. A lot of young people are, when asked, why do you watch pornography? And they turn around and say, oh, because we want to learn styles and we want to, learn ways to do it. And because they think it's normal. They think this is normalised behaviour. There are some also young men who would think that, okay, so they're seeing white women behave in these particular ways, then white women must be easy. This is normalised behaviour. And in some cases where there have been attacks on tourists within our community, it's been, you will go back to the basis for it, and the basis has been because of pornography. The vast majority of the time when there is sexual abuse of children in these communities, when there is children sexually abusing other children, it goes back again to pornography and access to pornography. So recently there was a Senate inquiry into age verification online. This is an issue that we all need to stand up and ensure that our federal government understands is utterly important. It is so important for our children that age verification becomes the norm. if that's the least we can do, then that's what needs to be done. I mean, if our federal government can turn around and demand that big tech companies do the right thing, can demand that Facebook pull their head in for the sake of our political leaders being able to voice their opinions on these platforms, well, surely they can do something about age verification when it comes to access to pornography online. Whenever children in communities are asked by my friend, well, where can you get access to pictures of naked people? They say USB sticks. So there's a trade of USB sticks going on in remote communities where if they can't get access out in the community, they're getting access from within places like Alice Springs and then taking it back out to communities, and they're actually paying money for USB sticks. Otherwise, TikTok and YouTube. And they know how to get hold of it like that, within an instant. There was a situation where in a community in Western Australia where a 6-year-old was attempting to get boys to suck his penis in a boys' toilet, and the principal got the families together to discuss that this was the issue, this is what was happening, to deal with the situation. The principal did the right thing in that situation. What happened from there was the family were run out of that school, they were forced out of that community, they moved to another community, and the families of the other boys that had been involved then targeted the next school that this child went to and exposed them online and said this child is a pedophile. And that family had to move from that school again. So my good friend wrote a book on this called Gary Just Didn't Know the Rules. So there has to be, education across the board, not just for children, but for families as well. And I think we have to protect our children because this was a situation that had come about because of pornography. A 6-year-old does not know what they're doing, but they're not a pedophile and they should be afforded every opportunity to understand what's right and what's wrong, to correct that behaviour, and of course without being targeted and without their families being driven out of the community that they're in. As community, we should be coming together to support our children in as many ways as we possibly can. I know that I'll be lobbying our territory government to do more because they simply are not interested when you try to broach these issues with child protection and with the education department. But it is our job, each and every one of us, to do whatever we can in our capacity, whether it's having conversations with our children, whether it's engaging with our school communities, whether it's lobbying our leaders and our politicians to do the right thing. But, for me particularly so within the Indigenous community, particularly where the rates of child sexual abuse are through the roof, where people are not educated as well. Aboriginal people don't have the education, the knowledge and understanding to understand exactly what is going on, what is beneficial for our kids, what is not beneficial for our kids. It's a huge job, but I'm glad to see there's so many in this room who are prepared to do the right thing for our children, for the future, for one another, for our families and for our communities.